Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's digital forum. Welcome to everybody. Thank you for being with us today. My name's Natalie Bungay, and I'm going to be your host today with the mostess. As you can see, we all like my headpiece and my Christmas trees. No Christmas jumper because I felt like I should stay a little bit professional, but hey, it's Christmas. Share the joy. Thank you for everyone being here. I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction before we get started. Gives you some good information, but also it allows some more people to join, which hopefully they're all rushing to the button. We've got nearly 100 of you with us so far, and I can just see as well that you're spread all over. We've got London, Scotland, we've got Edinburgh and Glasgow, Dublin, Gibraltar, even Plymouth, everywhere. So yeah, really good spread. I'm coming in from Derby today, down at the BPCA offices. Weather's not great, but hey, it's the 11th of December. But in 10 days' time, I think it is the shortest day. And after that, it's going to start getting lighter. So, things to celebrate. But yes, welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here. Really great to see you all joining. I'm really, really pleased as well to be joined and partnered with our sponsors today, Bell Laboratory. And they're going to be also doing a talk about their IQ products later on after the break. So yeah, again, a huge thank you to Bell Laboratories for sponsoring us today. So I'm just going to do a little run through with the agenda and a bit of housekeeping, but honestly, Merry Christmas. It's not too early to say that, is it? I haven't got my Christmas tree up yet, but that's just because I've been working so hard and tirelessly at supporting members. But I am putting it up today when I get home. As you can see, I've got two here to make up for it. So hopefully everybody is looking forward to the Christmas period, and we're all busy and we're all jolly and happy. Okay, and after today, yeah, you're going to learn some good stuff and have an even better day. So yeah, just a quick on the agenda. So you should have all seen it. So when you joined, it should have automatically kind of flagged up an agenda. But just as a quick introduction, firstly, just after I've done my bit, we're going to have Stephen Doggett from the New South Wales Westmead Hospital. He's going to be speaking about the pest management for a sustainable future. And after Stephen, we've got Sophie Thorogood from Pelsis talking roaches around the Christmas tree. So quite good for the season. We'll have a comfort break at 10:55 for 10 minutes, just so we can run off and get a coffee and or tea or whatever your drink may be. Just a quick comfort break for 10 minutes, and then we'll be coming back and joined by Bell Laboratories, Michael Sim, talking about the IQ product, like I mentioned before, the success and solutions of that product. And then just before we finish off with the association news and industry updates, we'll have Ben Meredith from Trustmark. So Trustmark is a new member benefit. I say new, kind of beginning of this year. It was released, and for all BPCA members, automatically are members of Trustmark just by being a BPCA member. So for those of you that have heard of it and don't know too much about it, or don't know anything about it, that'd be a great session for you to find out how you can use that and how it's of amazing benefit to you. So make sure you stick with us. And then I've got my colleague Scott Johnston. He's coming on and doing some association news and industry updates. That's most of it for the agenda. So like I said, you've got access to it if you want to have a reminder. CPD points today. So we've got 3 CPD points on offer. As always, if there is a subject that the presenters are talking about today and you have particular interest in it that you want to go and do some further research, maybe we finish the forum today and you spend a bit of time online researching it a bit more, or even speaking to colleagues about it a bit more, you can also get CPD points for that. We call it unstructured, where you're using the knowledge that you've learned to further that knowledge and do some more research. So yeah, make sure you get all the CPD that you do. But for today's event, for joining, you'll get 3. You would have all pre-registered. If there's a few of you around a laptop, just remember that if it's just one person that's registered for this event and there's a few of you sat round, those ones that haven't registered, the points won't be allocated to you automatically. So you just need to go and make sure you upload that yourself to the relevant scheme that you're on. Okay, so coming to the end of the CPD season, so it's all going to be tallied up. So hopefully we've all got our 20 points or more for this year. I think I've got about 54, something like that. I bet there's lots of people on here who've got a lot more than me. Not that it's a competition, but I like to promote the CPD principles. Just notice as well, I'm probably jingling quite a lot, aren't I? It's okay. Reminder as well, so we have a chat and Q&A section. Like I said, lots of people are using that chat section already, so I think you're aware what it's for, to say hi and what your name is if you want to. But also, if you have any technical issues, if my sound or any of the presenters' sound goes a bit funny for you, or the video, then just flag it up in the chat section. And my colleague Lauren is in the background there, just keeping an eye, and she'll give you any advice that she can to try and sort that issue out. But also, it lets us know if there's a problem there. Hopefully I'll notice if there is, but yeah, it's good for you to let us know. Now, at the end of each presentation, we are going to hopefully have about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, depending on how the presentation flows, but we're going to have Q&A. So it's a chance for you to submit your questions to the presenter regarding the subject they're talking about, and I'll read them out, and yeah, the presenter can do their best to answer your questions. So please make sure you get them in, but it's a different section to the chat section. So there's a Q&A button, whether it's at the bottom of your screen or to the right, depending on what device you're using. But if you put it in the chat section, there's a chance we won't see it. As I said, my colleague Lauren will keep an eye on it and try and advise you if she sees a question pop up that should be in the Q&A section. Okay, so click on that Q&A and give us your question or comments that you want read out or specifically. Okay, and we'll do that. So just a quick shout out to some events. We're coming to the end of the year. This is our last event for 2024. In 2025, there's a real mixture, so we're really ramping it up for the events next year. We've got 8 of these digital forums as usual, and we also have 8 physical events. I think the first one is in January and it's in Glasgow. So for those of you that join from Scotland, yeah, maybe you can get along to that. I think it's the 22nd of January. So you can get along. We also have like a real mixture. So we're doing webinars, we're BPCA webinars, and we're also doing guest webinars where it's not just us, babbling on at you. And we're also doing debate sessions where we debate certain things. And the first one of the year is about glue boards. So we're going to have some 3 panelists, and they're going to be debating, what's happened with the glue boards, what their view is on it, what experiences they've had, and yeah, just a good opportunity to learn a bit more about it, as well as get the lowdown on what people are experiencing. So we've got that, and then the normal formats of the webinars. So there's a real mixture. We're trying to give you what you want, and from the feedback you've given us, I think that variety really suits everybody. And then lastly, you might have seen something called Trussell Trust pop up when you join. There should be a background screen. Trussell Trust is a food bank, and it's BPCA. We are sort of a permanent supporter of that charity. This year we're not. We normally do Secret Santas here at the BPCA office and share gifts amongst us, but we're actually not going to do that this year. And instead of spending the £10-20, whatever it is that we normally do, we're going to donate it to Trussell Trust. So if anybody is here and you want to donate to a good cause food bank, then please, everything and anything helps. Okay, so yeah, please do if you can. Right, okay, I think we're about ready to get started. I can't see, there's no messages that have popped up for me. Someone's saying the sound is a bit scratchy, but I don't know whether that's possibly your computer or mine. I can't see anybody else. Yeah, I think it sounds. Lauren's not popping up and telling me that anything's wrong. So without further ado, I'm going to stop talking, which we're all going to be pleased about. And I'm going to ask Stephen Doggett, and welcome Stephen to. There we go. Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I am. So I'll just start my video now, Natalie.
There
yes,
you
I'm
go.
definitely here, and it's good to see you again.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you, and thank you for joining us. What time is it? What time is it there?
Well, it's dark. It's 20 to 9 here.
20
so
to 9.
11 hours. 11
Yeah.
hours or 13? I can't work it out. I'll let you work it out.
It's 11. Yeah, it's 20 to 10 in the morning here, and I almost feel like it's almost dark still. I mean, it's just the weather, over here, but it is light. It's just a bit miserable. But anyway, I'll stop talking about our, British weather. And yeah, I'll let you do your introductions, and please, yeah, tell us, start your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just share screens, and hopefully you'll get the main screen.
Yep,
and you can see it okay?
Yep, I can see that perfectly. Thank you.
Excellent, fantastic. So again, thank you, Natalie, and I'd like to thank the British Pest Control Association and Lauren Day for the kind invitation to speak to you today. So my name's Stephen Doggett. I'm the Director of Medical Entomology at Westmead Hospital in Sydney, Australia, and I'm going to talk to you about a topic that's not causing ripples through businesses around the world. It's causing a tidal wave of change, and that is sustainability. And so the title of my presentation is Pest Management for a Sustainable Future. But what exactly is sustainability? And there's many different definitions, but I like the simple definition. Sustainability is meeting the current needs without jeopardizing the needs of future generations. In other words, preserving the future for all people, for all animals and plants on the planet. And the concept of sustainability has really changed over the years within pest control. And if we only have to go back a short while, where sustainability really focused on the reduction of the use of insecticide to reduce the indirect impacts of insecticides, the impact on human health and the planet. And we did that through promoting integrated pest management, IPM. But the concept of sustainability is very different now. And if you ask people what sustainability is about, it's about reducing our carbon footprint. Why? To mitigate the impact of climate change. And so when I'm talking about sustainability in this presentation, I'm focusing on the reduction of carbon footprint to mitigate the impact of climate change. So to give an overview of this presentation, I'll start by talking about climate change, why it's occurring, and some of the impacts on the planet. I'll then go on to talk about the impact of climate change on urban pests, and I'll focus on one particular group, mosquitoes. I'm basically a mosquito worker, although I'm renowned internationally for my bedbug work. I'll then go on to talk about why the pest control industry has to be proactive and address sustainability in the concept of climate change. And this is becoming increasingly important. And the fact is, you've got no choice. You'll have to do something about it. And then I'll talk about what you, as both as an individual and your company, can do to mitigate climate change. Now, during this talk, I'm going to discuss several articles and several papers, and I've placed all of these, as well as this presentation, onto Google Drive under this address or the QR code, which takes you to the same spot. I'll put this up at the end of the talk, so don't worry if you miss it. But you can download this presentation, and feel free for anybody to use any part of this presentation if it can help you and your business and your clients. Okay, so what is climate change? Well, the name's pretty self-evident. Climate change refers to shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. And it's a natural process. But when it's a natural process, it's slow. It takes hundreds of years, thousands of years, 10,000 years, millions of years to occur. But when we tend to use the term climate change, we use it in the context of this rapid change that we're seeing now, which is directly due to human-induced activities. And the reason why we're seeing climate change is because of the greenhouse effect. Now, if you don't know what the greenhouse effect is, I'll briefly explain it. So basically, solar radiation from the sun comes through the universe and hits the planet, and passes through our atmosphere and hits the Earth's surface, and it warms the Earth's surface. But some of this energy is bounced off the surface in the form of infrared energy. And some of this is actually trapped by the atmosphere. And this is good because it creates this nice, stable environment that allows life on Earth. However, the problem is that greenhouse gases are building up in the atmosphere, so more and more of this infrared energy is being trapped. As a consequence, the world is heating up. And so concentrations of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases have gone through the roof post-industrial era. And every year, the levels of CO2 are breaking new records in the atmosphere. And why is it occurring? It's due to our reliance of fossil fuels and the burning of fossil fuels. We've known about climate change and greenhouse effect for more than 70 years. Yet in 2023, we burnt more fossil fuels than we ever had before. As a consequence, the world's heating up, and we're almost 1.5 degrees above pre-industrial levels, and we're going to hit it, but there's no question at all. And it appears that we've hit some critical level where the last 10 years have been the hottest years on record, and it's about to be surpassed by 2024. And this is a graph of the temperatures over the years from 1940 to present. And we can see the red in 2024, how it's basically topping the lot. We're going past 2023, which was the hottest year on record. But it's interesting just to look at the average over that 30-year period of 1981 to 2010. Not that long ago. It's in the lifetime of many of us, and certainly in the lifetime of me. I was born in 1963. But it's hard to believe that such a short period ago was actually 1 degree cooler. And so we're seeing incredibly rapid change in temperatures. But it's not uniform across the world. And so Europe is really suffering with climate change. And the summer of 2023 was the hottest in the last 2,000 years, since the height of the Roman Empire. And in fact, Europe is becoming hotter at twice the global average rate. And one of the consequences of this rising temperatures, heat wave that can lead to heat stress and death. And in 2022, there were some 61,000 people died from heat and heat-related effects in Europe. Unfortunately, this particular year, this 2022 year, is projected to be the average summer, not the extreme summer, but the average summer within 11 years. And we can expect many more deaths in the future from extreme heat, and it's a real worry. Another consequence of extreme heat is extreme fires. And if we look at these peaks in temperatures indicated by the yellow in the graph, that where these peaks occur, this is where we tend to see fires. And 2023, which is the hottest year on record, also saw record fires across Europe. More than 500,000 hectares burnt in Europe in 2023. And you may remember those horrendous fires in places like Spain and Greece and other parts of Europe. Just horrendous, causing huge amount of damage. Another consequence of global warming is that warmer air holds more moisture. And the air now holds between 7 to 10% more moisture than what it did pre-industrial level. As a consequence, we're seeing more extreme rainfall events. And these rainfall events are not only more common, but they're breaking records. And you may remember only last month, in early November, how in Valencia in Spain, they received 1 year's worth of rainfall in one day. And we saw these horrific images of cars that have been pushed down by the flood water down some of the main streets. Unfortunately, we're seeing this a lot around the world. And in fact, over the last 40 years, worldwide extreme weather catastrophes have increased 4.5-fold. I mean, this is 2/3 of my lifetime. It's just hard to believe. I mean, I'm aware of changes in the environment since in the last 20 years. It's quite evident to me, and it's a real concern. And so we come to the IPCC. So who is the IPCC? They're the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. This is a committee that was set up some years ago by the United Nations to assess the science related to climate change. Pretty much every country in the world is signatories to the IPCC. And these documents, the document on the right, has had thousands, in fact, historically, tens of thousands of contributors. Tens of thousands of people have contributed to these IPCC reports. And simply what the IPCC does is to review the literature relating to climate change. And in the most recent report on the right, some 10,000 papers were reviewed and a summary document was produced. Summary in the order of 3,600 pages. Now, there are more briefer documents produced, and I've got one on the Google Drive that you can actually download. But the most recent report from 2022 was unequivocal in their findings that this rapid change we're seeing in climate is directly due to human activity, directly due to burning of fossil fuels. And most importantly, we've got a narrowing window to act. We have to act by 2030. And it's not one or two climate scientists saying this, it's pretty much everyone that's saying it. We can say that climate change is an undeniable fact. And the only people who disagree are people who are being paid by the big polluters or on crap Rupert Murdoch media. And my apologies as an Australian for giving Rupert Murdoch to the world from Australia. My apologies. And so the United Nations set up the Paris Agreement at one of these annual meetings. You may remember there was a meeting in Baku called COP, the Conference of Parties. And so the Paris Agreement was formed in 2015, signed by all United Nations in the world. There were several aims of the Paris Agreement. One was to limit warming to under 1.5 degrees Celsius. That isn't going to happen. We're going to pass in the next couple of years. But we need to become net zero by 2050 so that global emissions are equally captured or offset or reduced, or the combination of the above. But it was agreed that it's actually critical to avoid a 2-degree global warming. Well, what does a 2-degree warming mean for the world? Well, we can actually look at that within the sort of box on the right. 2 degrees, we can expect 16% of plants will lose half their habitable area. 18% of insects will lose half their habitable area. And you've got to remember, insects feed us. Pollinators help feed us, and there's a worldwide decline in pollinators. 99% of coral reefs will be gone, which is just horrendous to me, who just love snorkeling and going to reefs around the world. 30% of the global population will experience extreme and severe heat, 1 in every 5 years. And basically, the Arctic ice cap will melt completely once in every 10 years. It's pretty terrifying stuff. But what do the scientists behind the IPCC report think is going to happen by the year 2100? Well, the Guardian newspaper, which you all would know since it's based in the UK, undertook a survey of the climate scientists who actually write the IPCC report and said, where do you think, temperature-wise, under the current scenario that we're tracking, the world will be by the year 2100? 4 out of 5 scientists expect the Earth will increase by 2.5 degrees Celsius. That will be catastrophic, without a question. So, okay, we move from depressing news to even more depressing news, and the impact of climate change on pests and pest management. Many of you may be aware of this document. This was a document that came out in 2009. Admittedly, climate change is far more rapid than what was predicted back then. And I think this report really needs to be redone. But this report is on Google Drive, which you can download from my Google Drive. And so they predicted the impact of climate change on different pests across the UK. And so basically they said some urban pests largely going to be unchanged. And these are the pests that tend to occur in the home. And so English homes are very well insulated. They're designed not to lose heat compared to Australian homes that are designed to lose heat. But then other pests are going to be affected. These are ones that tend to occur outdoors and occasionally come indoors. Your house flies, your ants, your termites, your mosquitoes. And there's one particular mosquito that poses a great threat to the UK that I'll come to shortly. But basically, if we look at the housefly, that with a rise of 4 to 5 degrees Celsius, the life cycle basically decreases by roughly 50%. And I must thank my colleague Paolo Dang for this slide and a couple of others in his presentation. And with a 2 degrees increase, insects have between 1 to 5 additional life cycles per year. And think of the pest problem that imposes. And it's imposing a lot of changes with mosquitoes. We're already seeing changes in mosquito and mosquito activity directly due to climate change. For a start, we're seeing longer mosquito seasons, particularly in the more temperate areas of the world. We're seeing higher reproduction rates. As a consequence of the longer season, higher reproduction rates, we're seeing more virus transmission and we're seeing bigger disease outbreaks. We're seeing expanding distribution of both mosquitoes and the diseases they transmit. In fact, in my region in New South Wales, only 3 years ago, we saw the first outbreak of Japanese encephalitis. This normally occurs in Southeast Asia and more tropical regions, and yet it made this appearance. It caught us totally unaware. And with all these extreme rainfall events, we're getting more flooding, more rain, and that provides greater opportunity for breeding of mosquito larvae and mosquito numbers. The most important mosquito worldwide for the transmission of viral diseases is Aedes aegypti. It transmits dengue, chikungunya, yellow fever, Zika virus. Not that long ago, the populations of Aedes aegypti were limited in elevation to 1,000 meters, but with climate change and global warming, the mosquito is going up in elevation and has now been found up to 2.5 kilometers in the Andes. And where it's been really felt is in the Himalayas. And we only have to go back 20 years in Nepal, where there was no dengue at all. Yet in the last 2 years, there was over 110,000 cases, or close to 110,000 cases. And this is directly due to climate change. And climate change is changing dengue transmission around the world. That this year alone, for the first time ever, we broke 1 million cases globally in 1 month. Then the next month, we got 2 million cases. And in March this year, we almost broke 3 million cases, just 2.8 million. But dengue is going through the roof globally. The other great mosquito of concern is Aedes albopictus. This is the most invasive mosquito on the planet, and there's only 2 continents where it doesn't occur. One happens to be Australia, and we're doing a lot to keep it out. The other is Antarctica. But basically, this is a mosquito that's expanding its distribution with climate change. It's moving away from the equator to more temperate areas, and never more so than in Europe. So it got into Albania in 1979 and basically spread across the Mediterranean. And those red areas indicate where it's currently established. Yellow areas indicate where it has occurred. And you can see this yellow area in the UK. And so basically the first truck stop from the tunnel across from mainland Europe, there are all these mosquito traps to monitor for species like Aedes albopictus, and it's been picked up several times. This is a species that's knocking on your back door, and I suspect in another 5 to 10 years, it'll be present in England, and you will see outbreaks of viruses like Zika virus, chikungunya, and dengue, like they are seeing in Southern Europe. It's just a matter of time. But climate change is also impacting insecticides. Now, admittedly, for many insecticides, efficacy increases at higher temperatures, but it's not true with all actives. So if we take the organochlorines, organophosphates, and the carbamates, there is a positive effect with temperature so that the insecticides are more effective at higher temperatures. But there's an opposite effect with the pyrethroids, and many of those chemicals like the OCs, OPs, and carbamates are just no longer used. But the pyrethroids are widely used, and at higher temperatures, we get increased detoxification. And for the case of fungal pathogens such as Bavaria batsiana that's used against bed bugs and mosquitoes, we see a reduced efficacy, particularly above about 25 degrees Celsius. Climate change will also impact resistance. Simply with more generations, we get faster evolution of resistance. But higher temperatures actually favor cuticular resistance because those insects with a thicker cuticle can actually live longer. And once we start getting one form of resistance, we get other forms of resistance evolving. And so think of bed bugs, for example. They have cuticular resistance, metabolic resistance, knockdown resistance, symbiote mediated resistance. And the only thing they don't have is behavioral resistance, for the future. And so there's no doubt that climate change will lead to reduced efficacy. So we come to the next phase of the talk. Why will the pest management industry have to address climate change and adopt a lower carbon footprint? Well, there's a lot of pressure coming in many ways. First of all, we're seeing pressure from the public. And the public are concerned about climate change and the impact on the globe, their children, and future generations. And people want action about climate change. And now 45% of consumers look for sustainable options when they shop. And that's certainly true for me. I try to buy local produce because basically the supply chain can add a huge carbon footprint to any product that I buy. So I look for local options. But there's a very interesting survey that came out this year, and there was many questions asked, and this was conducted by the United Nations, and it was attitudes towards climate change. And one question that this survey asked was, should your country strengthen or weaken its commitment to address climate change? And what I'm going to show you is the data from the UK, where basically 84% of people polled said that the government should strengthen its commitment to address climate change. And this shows that people really are concerned about climate change and that people want change for the good rather than heating up. The other effect, the impact for you especially, and you and your pest control business, relates to all these companies around the world that are committed to going to carbon neutrality. Some of these companies have already become carbon neutral, some committed to 2030, some to 2050. But now 1,000 of the top 2,000 companies of the world have committed to going to carbon neutral. And this number is actually increasing. And the problem is for you is that for these companies to maintain their carbon neutrality, their suppliers and service providers will not only have to provide their greenhouse gas emissions under the Scope 3 requirements. If you don't know what I mean by that, you will pretty soon. Well, I won't talk about in this presentation, but you will need to know what that means. But it means that for these companies to maintain their carbon neutrality, suppliers and service providers will also need to be carbon neutral in what I call a trickle-down effect. Now we have legislation coming around the world for climate reporting. And so in Europe, I think it was either November or December, you can correct me, of 2022, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive came in. So large companies, listed companies, have to publish their greenhouse gas emissions. So if you download, say, the Rentokil quarterly report, you can see their emissions in their report. And now countries around the world are bringing in carbon caps for companies. And this includes taxes and penalties. And so this means that if a company wants to use you, they really need to know your greenhouse gas emissions as an operator. And that has to be independently audited by a reputable authority, not by Volkswagen. It has to be real. And so we're seeing a change now in contract tendering, where often companies, particularly government, are saying to pest controllers, and this is happening in Australia, that we want to know what you're doing about sustainability. And one big sort of buzzword at the moment, or two buzzwords, is sustainable procurement. So now when I buy a piece of equipment for the laboratory, I have to look at the whole life of the product and the impact of the environment, how it's produced, how it's going to be used, how it ends, and if it can be recycled as part of the circular economy. And now the driving factor for these goods is no longer cost, it's sustainability, which means that we can buy goods that are more expensive if they are sustainable. And this is the case with you too, that you may have to charge more to do all this, but you may be looked at and likely to be looked at favorably. And I have a document on sustainable procurement within Google Drive that you can download. And so if you have such things as ISO 14001, which I'll talk about shortly, or Cert B Corp, then you will look favorably on companies because it's an international form of accreditation. Well, and so if you are carbon neutral, there's no doubt you will have a competitive advantage. So what is ISO 14001? Well, it's an international accreditation for environment management system. And quite a few pest control companies already have this. And so organizations basically need to consider environmental issues within and relevant to its operation from the whole gamut. I won't read out this list, air pollution, etc. But most importantly, companies must have an environmental policy and demonstrate continual improvement. And that's a requirement of any ISO standard, continual improvement. And hopefully, pest control associations like the British Pest Control Association will provide training in ISO 14001 in the future because it will be needed. Many companies will need it. Sorry, Natalie, that's something for the future. Fortunately, there's a long distance between her and me, so she can't kick me under the table. So what can we do about reducing our carbon footprint? Well, we can do it in three main ways. One is efficiency conservation through mass transport, building codes, energy efficient goods, through electrification, particularly reducing our reliance on fossil fuels and relying more on solar wind energy. And that's an interesting fact that in 1 hour, there's enough solar energy that lands on the planet that could power the planet for a year. Solar and wind energy is the future. And can I congratulate the UK on closing your last coal station this year? Well done, you. In some industries, it's hard to not use fossil fuels, particularly shipping industry, the aviation industry. But this is changing. So if fuels are used with some emissions or lower emissions, then we can aim for net zero through carbon offsets. It's not ideal, but it's better than nothing. Unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of greenwashing going on, and that's a major problem in the world. And I mentioned about electric vehicles, and the UK is doing terrific in this space. And last year, you bought the second highest number of electric vehicles across Europe. And now, last year, around 25% of vehicles are electric. Much better than Australia. We're hopeless. I think our sales are less than 5%. I must congratulate the British Pest Control Association on this initiative. It is amazing. It is brilliant. This contract sharing network system, where contract sharing can reduce mileage, reduce carbon footprint, without affecting quality of service and profitability. And so it's a great system, and it's a model for the rest of Europe, really, where it works in countries that are relatively small with a fairly large population. Unfortunately, in Australia, we've got a small population and a large country. It just doesn't quite work as well here. Then that's a problem. Certainly, remote monitoring has huge benefits for reducing carbon footprint. You're probably aware of this. It's a proactive, not reactive service. We get a better service because we go out when it's needed. We just don't go out on a regular basis. And it means reduce site visitation, which means reduce carbon footprint. This is the way of the future for rodent monitoring in industries, stored product pests and other insect pests. If we can, we should shop and look for these ethical suppliers. And there's various climate ethical labels. And some of these you may know, like Fair Trade and Rainforest Alliance, which is really social responsibility. And that's been around for a long time. I help fund Climate Neutral. But without a question, the most important globally is B Corp certified. To B Corp certified, you have to demonstrate not only environmental responsibility, but also corporate and social responsibility. And there's a number of companies that are now B Corp certified. You can get on the website and have a look. One of the big companies is Who Gives a Crap, that supply tissues, toilet paper and paper towel. And that's sold all around the world. And this is actually a carbon negative company that also provide a certain percentage of their profits to social projects, particularly providing toilets in developing nations. If you want some resources for further information, I would recommend this wonderful guide. This is a document I produced late last year and did some work on it this year. This pest management sustainability guideline is the first in the world, and it focuses on reducing carbon footprint for the pest control industry. It discusses about measuring greenhouse gases emissions, which is absolutely vital for the company. It talks about climate reporting, environmental accreditation, carbon footprint savings, and social responsibility. A copy of that is on Google Drive that you can access. And if you've got any suggestions to improve it, please let me know. I'm more than keen to learn more about it. Just recently, a company in the tiny islands of the Maldives just achieved carbon neutral status. It was independently verified. The company is Pest Terminate. It's owned by Satif Chandran, pictured here. And I did a interview type article on him, which was published in IPC, which is again on Google Drive that you can download. And I believe his company is the first in the world to achieve carbon neutrality. You can do it, and you can read about how he can do this. But do we need something like this for the future, for the pest control industry? Some sustainability rating, like that's done in the hotel industry. Where I book a hotel, I look at their sustainability rating, and they have things like 1 leaf, 2 leaf, 3 leaves. Is this something that could be done for the pest control company? That could give confidence to both the consumers and companies that may employ you. And I'm proposing this system: 1 leaf for greenhouse gas emission data, 2 for ISO 1401, and 3 for B Corp certified. No company I know is B Corp certified yet, but they are coming, and some of the bigger pest control companies are looking at it. So finally, I thought I would end it with 2 quotes, and these quotes come from COP21 when the Paris Agreement was formed. And the first was from the former president of the US, Barack Obama, where he said the following: "We are the first generation to feel the effect of climate change," and that's very true. "And most fittingly, we are the last generation who can do something about it." Terrible thought. And the final quote comes from His Holiness Pope Francis at the same meeting. And I always feel great guilt and great shame when I ever read this out. And I actually get quite emotional because I feel great shame and guilt, as I said. And Pope Francis said the following: "Never were we so hurt and mistreated our common home as we have in the last 200 years. And most importantly, those who will have to suffer the consequences, our children and grandchildren, will not forget this failure of conscience and responsibility. How do you want the future generations to look back at us? With disdain or with something a bit more promising? And it's up to us to do something about it. And we need to act urgently." And so I'd like to thank you all. As I said, there's a few documents that are on Google Drive that you can download. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me. That's my email. If you want to use this presentation, by all means, please do. And so thank you again to the British Pest Control Association for the kind invitation to speak to you tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, that was amazing. A good insight into all the different areas that climate change can affect, and obviously more specifically to us. And thank you for the shout out for the CSN that we run as well, because I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. But like you said, it's not just about getting those big contracts and being able to secure them and get the money for it, but it's actually also about sustainability. Having to travel less and getting those people who are nearer to the work to do the work so that you don't have to travel. So yeah, thanks for that shout out. Yeah, we've got a question in here from Matthew. So I'm going to sort of paraphrase it because I know what he's getting at. So other things we use. Well, actually, I'll read it specifically, and I think you know what it is. But items in solar farms, for example, and the metal and the materials used in wind farms and concrete and things. So what is that kind of secondary issues that we have around? Okay, it's more sustainable, but the materials we use to build them, is that a concern or?
Of course it is, Matthew. You're totally right. I mean, no matter how we get our energy, we've got to do something in order to actually to obtain that energy. If we mine coal, we've got to mine coal, we've got to do stuff, we've got to build equipment. I mean, everything we do has some sort of carbon footprint. But once it's up and running, then there isn't that carbon footprint. And the good thing about renewable energy is it actually employs a lot more people than both coal and solar. And once it's built, then it is carbon neutral, and it can run for some time, some years, without posing a huge carbon footprint. So it's true. So Stephen, what can you remember? So I've got these questions in front of me, Natalie. So Stephen, what do you recommend a sole trader can do to reduce their carbon footprint? Money being a big problem. Being a problem, of course it is. Of course it is. And this is going to be a challenge, that if you are in a situation where you've got to produce your greenhouse gas emissions, it's not easy to do. And most companies actually employ experts to do it. within greenhouse gas emissions, there's three sort of parts of scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. Scope 1 is direct emissions. That's easy to measure. That's basically your petrol. Scope 2 is indirect from electricity use, and scope 3 is everything else, and that's really difficult. And you would probably have to get somebody else to do it. But you as a sole trader can think about, well, those three things I talked about. Can you move away from internal combustion engines to gas? Can you use products that have some sort of sustainable option? Use solar for your energy requirements. So there's a lot of this information in that document I produced. So Mike, can I recommend you just go to that address I've got up there, download it and go through it. There's lots of suggestions there.
Mhm. Absolutely. I mean, just a shout out for what we're doing in the UK as well. We have in the BPCA our own environmental sustainability work group that was developed or set up this time last year, and I'm quite heavily involved in that. And we haven't got it out yet, just to everybody listening. So we've got a guidance document. We're calling it a toolkit. So it's an environmental sustainability toolkit. It's 3 or 4 pages. It's not too intense that you wouldn't want to read it. I think it's very readable, and it gives specific advice to what you can do as whether you're a small business or a large business. It can, yes, we might think about renewing our fleets and getting electric vehicles rather than petrol and all these things, which cost obviously a lot of money, and that's not maybe at this moment available to everyone. But actually, there's a lot of small things you can do, isn't there? Whether it's your
Yeah,
switching your products, using less products, doing route planning, making sure your routes are all, these little things matter, don't they?
they certainly
Yeah.
do. Yeah, there's going to be headaches on the way, and I envisage down the track that all companies will have to provide the greenhouse gas emission data, and that's some years off for the smaller companies. It's going to happen. If you see something happening with big companies, there's going to be a flow-on effect down the track. And Natalie, I hope you can send me that document. I'd be keen. And I should say that Natalie and I were on a committee together once, which I won't talk about, which I no longer am, and I believe Natalie won't be soon. But just recently, I've started up a group of global experts in urban pest control that we're going to look at measures to reduce greenhouse gases through the pest control industry. And we're having our first meeting tomorrow night. So watch this space. I'm hoping good things will come out of it. It's a group of researchers that you would probably know their names, that are really dedicated to mitigating the impact of climate change and helping the industry in this path. So I expect there will be a lot of people like Natalie, like myself, who'll be working more and more in this space. And we want to help you. We know where it's going. We want to help you. We're not an enemy. I mean, it's happening. We're just helping your path in this journey, trying to make it a bit easier for you.
Yeah, just about providing, the information in a way that people can understand it and giving good guidance and advice. It's up to everybody else to
Exactly.
follow it, isn't it? And care about it, I suppose. We all have different levels of thoughts about different things, but just start by understanding what it is. And I think by understanding it, then creates a desire to, actually maybe I can do these small things, and that matters. And like you mentioned, the presentation, that can help you in terms of tendering and winning contracts, because customers
Definitely.
want to see that. They want to see it, don't they?
Are you seeing that in the UK yet, Natalie? We are seeing it in Australia, where particularly governments are really driving it at the moment. But we're expecting these, particularly these industries going to carbon neutrality, will be asking for sustainability requirements from pest controllers. Is this something you're
Yeah.
seeing at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of our
Really?
members that have ISO 14001, which is an environmental accreditation they can have. They're getting a lot of those. There's not many other accreditations, which is something I was always thinking about. Is there something else that can be offered in the industry that's maybe not quite as onerous, but maybe something that smaller organizations can start off with to suggest to their customers and show that we have actually been audited, to this little bit, and we do all these environmental things. Okay, there might not be big, massive ISO 14001 things, but we're starting, and that's important for it to be recognized in an official capacity. But yeah, we are. Yeah, the larger tenders certainly are expecting it. And it's not also much they say if you're not doing this, you can't have the contract, but it's definitely very heavily weighted in terms of whether you're going to win it or not against someone that has got environmental consideration to those that haven't. So yeah, it's definitely there, and it's going to be, as we move to 2030 with all the goals that the government have about vehicles and so on and so forth. I think it's going to be even more of a thing. So hence the toolkit we're going to release. We're hoping in January we'll release it. So yeah, Stephen, just get in touch, and I'm sure we'll be happy to let you have a copy of it, because we want to help the whole world, not just about the UK, is it? So
of course it is, and that's why I wrote that document. Admittedly, when I wrote that document, I didn't know what I was going to write. I sat down for 4 days and I produced something, and I've sent it to some experts in climate change. They thought it was pretty good, but I'm looking at to improve it. And so if anybody downloads it, reads it, feel free to send me suggestions. I'm willing to listen. And just to go on what you said, Natalie, I don't think it will be long before many companies will insist on at least ISO 14001.
Yeah. Yeah.
So do you have any plans to offer training in ISO 14001?
We don't know, but it's an idea bank. It's gone in there. Okay. Great.
It's something I would like to do within the Asian Pacific region, and it's something I'll be talking about tomorrow with my colleagues across the world.
We'll always be interested to hear, if we can certainly work together. But I just want to, thank you again. It's a hard subject, and there's a lot of people,
Tough.
that they struggle to kind of, understand, but also really grasp what they can do themselves. And yeah, I think that really focused in on the issues it causes, but also the things that we can do, and we can provide more support on that as well to anyone listening. So thank you, Stephen. That was great, and I hope you have a nice evening, because I know it's late over there, and I really appreciate your time.
Yes, it's almost my bedtime, Natalie.
Okay.
So thank you, everybody, and Merry Christmas to everybody, and have a safe and wonderful Christmas, and all the best for New Year. And as I said, feel free to use my talk. If you ever want me to talk about this topic, I'm happy to do that for you.
Fabulous. Thanks, Stephen. Sleep well as well when you go.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.